So in Darjeeling, Gothels is where both my grandfather and father were raised, on the border of Tibet. I remember my father sharing a story with me when they used to go up to the monasteries of the Tibetan monks, and they would watch the monks levitating 80, 100 feet in the air, and how astonished they were by it. Now, in their teaching was known as the Luciferianism. And I pulled these definitions off of Wikipedia because I think they do a good job of kind of explaining what Luciferianism means.
How is he doing that? Are you guys seeing this? And seeing and talking to so many people just to see you do that. So thank you very, very much. It's been enlightening. You know, my whole journey through your country has been absolutely amazing and truly magical.
Luciferianism is the embodiment of knowledge that acknowledges the principles of Lucifer as the light of conscious evolution. As a god or as a principle, Lucifer is the light bearer. We know that from the scripture. The light which illuminates the consciousness of sapient beings and heightens the senses and awarenesses to experience higher levels of being. You're on that reincarnation wheel, going round and round, and you're trying to rise up through your chakras till you become a Mahatma. Luciferianism, the path of self-attainment. It's the higher self. It is the centered path, neither left nor right. For Lucifer is the star that shines in the morning and evening, the point of the light between opposing forces. It is the symbol of the yin-yang, which I had branded on my body, because I was understanding the pure teaching of Luciferianism as the self-attainment. Now we also have another definition. Spiritual Luciferianism has its roots in the esoteric teachings of Western occultism and Hermeticism. This view holds that while Satan represents the manifestation of the material realm, Lucifer represents a highest spiritual ideal, one's true will, the holy guardian angel. As all material things are energy or light, Lucifer is seen as the creating force of the universe, ever present. Interestingly here, they add some classically educated Freemasons used Luciferian in their scholarly senses of bringing enlightenment, invoking Prometheus, who stole the fire from the gods to bring to man. So as I was growing up, and I was meeting these illuminated beings, who I believed were my dead ancestors. Again, his foundation is spiritualism. I thought I was being brought into the true understanding of one's self-awareness and attaining the higher self. And it started at a very young age. And again, let's look at the term here, Illuminati. It means any various groups claiming special religious enlightenment, persons who are claimed to be unusually enlightened. This is the worldwide headquarters of Freemasonry. Does anybody have any idea where it is? Washington, D.C. So it's in one of the city-state capitals. You can see it almost looks like an Egyptian motif. And interestingly enough, this is located 13 blocks north of the White House. And that's very important in the occult world. We're not going to spend time on that. But even Washington, D.C. itself is laid out in a giant Masonic grid pattern as they were preparing the United States to be the new Atlantis, as we're coming into the dawning of the new age, as they're trying to reinstate Atlantis again. So the main library of the Supreme Council, 33rd degree of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, the Mother Supreme Council of the World, Washington, D.C., is dedicated to the Confederate General Albert Pike, the KKK's chief judiciary. And in this Masonic temple, the Albert Pike Memorial Room inside the Supreme Council, 33, which is again located 13 blocks directly north of the White House in Washington, D.C. Now, I met a family whose husband was a 32nd degree Freemason, a Shriner.
Man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Oh,
Amen.
God bless you,
Amen.
brother.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light. See, this is what a Mason confesses, is that Lucifer is light.
And so when you go to become a 33rd degree, you go here. This is the only place you go in North America. And it's an honorary right. And he was brought into this room, waiting room, with other candidates. And individually they're brought out in front of a host of people. And they asked them, who are you willing to submit your oath to? And he didn't know what the answer was. So they shoveled him back into the waiting room. And at this time, his family was outside praying for him to get out.
Los masones deben creer en un ser supremo que ellos elijan, pero está prohibido adorar al diablo.
He turned to the man next to him and he said, who am I swearing an oath to? And the man said, to Lucifer. And he got up and walked out and resigned from the lodge. Now we can actually find here in Isaiah 14, chapter 14, verses 12 through 14, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, the son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Because it's all about self-attainment. And we're going to peel this onion layer back a little bit, and we're going to look at some characteristics in the Bible itself of what I call the children of disobedience. This apron, which you see in the top corner, is the Illuminati symbol of the serpent eating its tail, that ye shall not surely die, but ye shall be as God. So I had the 3 solar burst, and then the clasp which closed it, and then below is my family's crest, which actually sits on the Vatican floor, because I'm a descendant of Pope Clement of over 700 years ago. That's how far back my family's been caught up in this bloodline of secret societies. And so that's why I was being groomed for what's coming. And this is something that I used to do. Levitation. I was a full adept transcendental meditationist by the time I was 12 years old, because I had been given the gift through my family's bloodline. Clairvoyance, telekinesis, astral projection, levitation, all things that I thought were normal behavior. And I would talk to my friends at school and they say, Mark, we don't know what you're talking about, but it's out of this world. And I'm like, come on, you can do this. I had it down to a science. I get home from school, I go to my room, 20 minutes in my mantra, and I was out of my body. Or I'd be levitating off the bed. But did I know what was lifting me off the bed at the time? Devils? No, I didn't know that. And right away there were these illuminated ones right there, willing to show me the way. And I've seen some pretty fascinating things that probably would institutionalize some people if they saw them today. So this is where I was. This is the life that I grew up and understood. But it wasn't until I read the Bible in Deuteronomy in chapter 18 where God said that these are an abomination. You know, let's read it. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. They shall not be found among you anyone who maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire. That's a Masonic ritual. Or use divination, which we know is fortune telling, or observer of times, astrologer, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, a necromancer, one that conjures up spirits. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God drove them out from before thee. Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. And how do we become perfect with Him? by putting on the armor of light, Christ's robe of righteousness. And everything is blotted out. But that robe of righteousness is also our armor for spiritual warfare. Chapter 16:26 of Matthew, for what is a man profit if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man gain in exchange for his soul? So here I was at the tipping point in my life. I'm on upstate New York. I'm in this camp that I bought from a friend of my father's. I'm trying to quit my career at IBM, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, rubbing elbows with very prestigious people, offered to be a part of these elite groups. And I'm wrestling with this and wrestling with this. And where I'm standing on the back of the house, there was a lake and the river that came down where the lake joined. And right across it was the intelligence center for the state police barracks and the Department of Environmental Conservation, forest rangers, which actually have more authority than the state police in the States. And it's about midnight, and I see all this activity going on. And so I go and grab a pair of binoculars, and I look out and hear all these guys. Full regalia, Masonic aprons on. And I'm like, Lord, what have I got myself into? And so I'm standing there on the deck and I'm panning. And all of a sudden I stop and I'm looking, and there's a pair of crosshairs looking down my scope. I'm looking into his scope and he's got a rifle pointed at my head. So I wave and he nods back at me and I drop to my knees. I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. What am I to do? This is in the middle of nowhere. And it's a dark, dark county. Completely under their control. And I realize they're not on the other side of the lake anymore. Well, they're coming around. They're coming for me. And I'm praying, Lord, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? This is it. In a small, still voice, Mark, take your shoes and socks off and go outside and tell them you belong to me. Okay, Lord. Okay. So I took off my shoes, I took off my socks, I jumped off the back of the deck, I'm walking out into the woods, and next thing I'm standing in front of this thing, 20 feet tall, in front of me. The God of the dead, the Lord of the underworld, Anubis. And next to him, he's stacking souls wrapped in gunny sacks with their eyes cut out, tied up, wriggling. And he's talking to me, saying, I've already got your soul, Mark. And next thing I know is I look at him and I say, you can have my body, but you can't have my soul. I've given it to the Lord. This thing vanishes. These men around me are all backing away. And then this small, still voice says, Mark, go inside. This is not your battle. Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and sup with him, and he with me. He's knocking at all of our hearts. The reason why the Lord told me to take my shoes and socks off, I didn't realize this till I read this later in Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. For you are standing is holy ground. So here is my God interceding on my behalf and saying, he's mine. He's not yours. He's not yours. He's not yours. He's not yours. He's not yours.